Today was the yahrzeit of Rav Binyamin Mendelssohn, who's the Rav of Komamiyus, which is a community in Israel that's dedicated to keeping all of the laws that apply to the Holy Land, and particularly to all the strictest opinions, the opinion of the Chazon Ish and other opinions. And it's really in Yonah the Yoma, because in the Torah reading we read about the sabbatical year, the Shmittah, and the Yovel, the Jubilee. The Yovel doesn't apply today because the majority, it only applies when the majority of the Jewish people are in the Holy Land. But the sabbatical year we observe today, even though it's probably rabbinical just to commemorate so we don't forget when it is, but we still observe it. And the sabbatical year is a very important thing, as it says in both of the Parshas that we're going to be reading this Shabbos. Behar-Bechukosai both talk about the sabbatical years, and Bechukosai in a pretty scary way, that the whole purpose of our exile is to let the land rest, and that if we're working the land on the sabbatical, that means it's one more year we're going to have to wait for Mashiach to come, because the original exiles, there was 70 sabbaticals from when they entered the land of Joshua until they were exiled in the days of Jeremiah, and so similarly, and so there was those 70 years they were in Babylonia, and so after that also the land needed its rest, but still we see the Torah promises if we keep the sabbatical there's tremendous blessings. And it says that those who, and that's one of the great proofs that the Torah is true. You know, there's the famous question, what does the Parsha begins Behar, that Hashem spoke to Moshe Har Sinai, on Mount Sinai. So Rashi asks, Ma Inyan Shmittah also Har Sinai, what does the sabbatical year have to do with Mount Sinai? So there are many answers. We could say also that the sabbatical year is something that's an incredible proof of the truth of the Torah, similar to the incredible proof of the truth of the Torah that we have from the revelation of Sinai. It's the only religion in the world, it's Judaism. The other religions agree to us, but they say God changed his mind later, silly things like that. But we say, we're the only religion that says the whole nation heard God, and they all lived, and even though, all right, they died and their souls came back, whatever it is, the Medrash says, but the simple way is that they all heard God, and Moses even says in Parshas Veschanan, we read on Tisha B'Av also, that look from one end of the earth to the other, from the beginning of the time to the end of time, and anything like this ever happened or even been heard of, the whole nation should hear God and live. So, other religions, you start asking questions. Don't ask questions, they just have dogmas you have to accept with blind faith. But by us, it's such a clear thing. Millions of people heard God, and then, all right, so if Moses just pulled off some kind of, special effects show, so what's to stop someone else from doing it later? Only God could have said such a thing, that it's never going to happen again, never even be heard of, meaning no one's ever even going to try to make up a story like that. And people, and were dared from the Torah to check from one end of the Torah, from one end of the world to the other, look into all the other religions. Has anyone else ever said a story like this? There's one proof that that the Torah is true. And this isn't just a game, this is not just our tradition, this is the true word of the living God. All right, but then it's not in front of our eyes all the time. It's not something that we experience, All right, our souls were there, but do we really remember it? Do we, So, but the sabbatical year is something that happens every 7 years. And it says there, if you're going to ask, in this week's Parsha, if you're going to ask what's going to happen if we're not going to plant on the 7th year, what are we going to eat? The 7th year, the 8th year. So you're going to ask, I'm going to give my blessing, God says, and it's going to be on the a blessing on the 6th year. There'll be a bumper crop, an extra crop. It'll be very successful, and you'll have enough food for the 7th year and for the 8th year. So, and that's a promise that the Torah gives us. So after, if that weren't true, after 7 years, people wouldn't have believed in the Torah anymore. And yet it always happened. Every 7 years, whenever the people observed the laws, there was always that crop. And even to this very day, like I mentioned, Rabbi Mendelssohn, among his many great things, but also that he insisted very much in his community in Kaimamias that they should keep the sabbatical year very strictly, according to all the strictest rules. And one year, it was a sabbatical year in Israel, and there came a plague of locusts, and it destroyed all the crops of all the people who didn't observe the sabbatical laws. And yet, the locusts passed over Kaimamias, and it wasn't plagued. This is a historical fact. I remember I was in the Holy Land during sabbatical year, and I remember something, I never saw anything like this, that first the whole sky turned like orange, and then started raining mud, and then in the middle of the night, we woke up. They said, "Come quick to the Beis Medrash, come quick into the yeshiva." We called out of the dormitories and get buckets and whatever you can, because it's pouring rain and it's dripping through into the building. And we got to stop it. And we looked out the window, and the big garbage dumpsters that they have in Israel were floating like little toy cars, and the water was up above the wheels of all the buses. It was like 4 a.m, 5 a.m. By 11 o'clock the next morning, it was all dry. It was all gone. And they said that this storm also wiped out all the ones that weren't keeping, and it was a blessing to the ones who did keep. And this was something I saw in my own lifetime, my own eyes. And so this is something, it's not a game. It's not just, something cute we do. We're Jews and we get together. This is real. But there's more than that. That's part of the message of the sabbatical, but there's even more to that, is that the message is, it's not about us. That it's really a focus on God. And that's what the Torah is about, is to focus on God. There's the verse says, the pasuk says, Gerem v'teshavem atem imadi, that you are strangers and residents with me. So I'll go away from the simple meaning and tell over Hasidic teaching from the Degel Machne Ephraim, the Rebbe of Sudlikov, who was the grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement. He's buried in the same area with his grandfather, the Baal Shem Tov. I was there in Mezhbizh, where he's buried. And the Degel says that when it says Ger M'Toshavim Atem Imadi, you are strangers and residents with me. The word Ger not only means a stranger, also means a convert. And we see, I remember when I was in yeshiva, one of my friends got married, and we didn't even know until by the Tanoim, by the engagement contract, and they read it and they said Reuven ben Avram Avinu. I didn't know. We found out he was a ger. We didn't know. We had no idea that he was a convert. Let the bears pay the bear tax.